Hi guys, Gijoe here, and welcome back to my bunker here in Atlanta, Georgia. Today is the 5th video in the BBR series where we are talking about the different rules and specific aspects of Sired Blood's Bloodbath rule set, the BBR. And here in episode 5, we'll be dealing with technology or research and development. So if you have the manual, which, by the way, you can get the link to this in episode 2 in the description box of the episode 2 video. But in Sired Blood's rule book here, Rules of Warfare, if you go to page 22, it talks about the research and development, okay? Also, if you have the card deck that you can get on makingplayingcards.com, card 390 and 4. 3 of 90 and 4 of 90. There are 2 different research and development charts. So we'll talk about those here subsequently. So first of all, but before we talk about how the research and development is utilized, let's go over the different research and development potential breakthroughs. So in the first chart, on card number 3, the first one is self-propelled artillery. And what that means is the artillery now supports 2 units. In addition to that, it also moves 2 up from 1. So if you have an artillery, for instance, with the Soviet Union, let's say, this one artillery, put that there, now will increase 2 infantry to attack at a 2, all right? So that's huge, all right? So if you have 20 infantry, you only need 10 artillery to support every one of your artillery to attacking at 2 with combined arms. And in addition to that, the artillery will be able to move 2 spaces as opposed to 1, all right? We'll talk about all this here in a second. Super battleships. Oh, and by the way, this is the roundel for self-propelled artillery. Okay, and again, you don't have to have these roundels. This is just a customization that kind of makes the game go a little bit easier. But you know, if you have this card, the card will suffice. Okay, the second thing is super battleships. Simply means your battleship now rolls 2 dice, and 1 would hit at a 4, 1 would hit at a 2. Okay, so if you have customized dice. Battle dice from like Grasshopper or Sired Blood, you now get to roll 2 dice. 1 hits at a 2 and 1 hits at a 4. And not only that, but the battleship now takes 3 hits as opposed to 2 to be destroyed, okay? And here is the roundel for that. Okay, you have a super battleship. We'll show you how to use these roundels here in a second, all right? Next thing is heavy bombers. Heavy bombers also rolls 2 dice, same thing as a battleship, is you roll a 2 and a 4, okay? And that also is included in bombing raids, all right? Your heavy bombers will get to roll 2 dice during bombing raids. So heavy bombers can be pretty devastating. And you see the tech roundel for heavy bombers, all right? Next one is super carriers. Super carriers now support 3 planes. So now 3 planes can land on a carrier, and a carrier also takes 3 hits. And incidentally, if your carrier has 1 hit on it, 1 point of damage, it is still fully functioning because it still has 2 hits remaining. So that's pretty huge. You can absorb hits on the carriers and still have a fully functional carrier, all right? And here's a roundel for the super carriers. Sired Blood made these, by the way. Okay, the next one is heavy tanks. Heavy tanks simply now attack and defend at a 4. That's a roundel for a heavy tank. And then the last one is improve transports. Naval transports can now carry 3 ground units, 1 infantry plus 2 other units. Okay, so you can do 3 infantry if you want, or 1 infantry and 2 tanks, 1 infantry artillery, a tank. So, but you cannot take like 3 tanks or 3 artillery. So you can take 3 units, but one of them has to be an infantry. Okay, at least one of them has to be an infantry. All right, and then here you see the roundel for super transports. Let that zoom in, all right? So that's the first research and development chart. The second one has 4 of them. You have super submarines, which means you attack at a 3, and an enemy destroyer only blocks target select. We'll talk about that in a later video on 3 subs. So if you have, for instance, 6 submarines going into a sea zone and only 1 destroyer, that 1 destroyer only blocks 3 of the subs. The other 3 subs would be allowed to target select. And here is the super submarine roundel. Next thing is jet fighters. Simply jet fighters attack at a 4 as opposed to a 3. So if you have fighters combined with tactical bombers or tactical fighters, now you have all your planes at a 4. So like for Japan, for instance, if you had 6 fighters and 6 TACs, you would have 12, you'd be rolling 12 4s. And if you escort or intercept, you will be increased, your dice roll will be increased to a 2 to intercept as opposed to a 1. And the jet fighters has a cool looking jet on there. And then the next one is improved shipyards, and that simply means that you're essentially everything in the naval unit will cost less, and that is located. The prices of those are included on the unit statistics card, which is card number 2. If you can see right here, under the naval units or sea units, you see the asterisk right there. So a submarine with improved shipyards would be 5 as opposed to 6. So you see all the values here. Transport is 5, destroyer 5, cruiser 10, aircraft carrier is 13, battleship is 16. So that shows you all the different decreased or discounted costs for producing sea units, okay? And the last one, oh, by the way, that is the roundel for that. Roundel for that is this cool looking industry looking shipyard, all right? And the last but not least is radar and ATC, okay? Now this is actually a dual tech, okay? And the way this works is anti-aircraft units and facility fire is increased to 2 now, okay? The air bases can now scramble unlimited planes up from 3, and it provides 2 points of extended range from an air base as opposed to 1. So that's actually 3 different techs combined into 1. So utilized by the right nation at the right time, this could be pretty devastating. So again, you could have your facilities. If somebody's doing a bomber raid on Japan, for instance, you would roll 2s as opposed to 1 for your anti-aircrafts on the bombers. And air bases can, so if Japan threw all of their planes on Japan towards the end, and U.S. was coming in, and you had 10 planes there, all 10 planes could scramble. Okay, even if you don't have enough carriers to hold the planes. And of course, you get to move 2 spaces from a naval or an air base rather than just 1, right? And here is the, well, this is an old roundel. This is radar, but I think the actual ATC roundel looks a little bit different than this. Okay, so those are the different technologies. Now, what's neat about how Sire does this is it's totally not like out of box, which in my opinion is not that great. So let's talk about the phases of technology development and how to acquire them, all right? So if we look here in the book, it says that before the game begins, each major power, which is Soviet Union, Japan, United States, and the United Kingdom, participate in the pre-game phase, okay? So what you're gonna do is, each one of those nations gets to pick a tech. Now, let's just pick a tech, for instance. As Germany, let's say we're gonna pick, no, not that. Yeah, let's pick this. No, let's do heavy tanks. So as Germany, they're gonna pick heavy tanks, all right? And they're gonna put it over here on their technology chart. Now, my technology chart that I have is built into my table right here, okay? You can see that. Well, actually, you can't see that because I'm turning it the wrong way. So let's go over here. So as you can see, I have Germany's roundel here, right? You got Russia, you got Japan, all in order. So if I was Germany on my table, I would take my tech roundel and put it face down. Now the reason it's face down is because I'm the only one that knows what my technology is. You do not have to disclose your technology until you use the technology, okay? But if you don't have a table like this, and let's say that you have Cyberblood's little income tracker / tech chart, you would simply take that and put it on P1, which is phase 1, okay? You can do this at no cost, by the way. All right, so Russia, they're gonna pick, let's say, self-propelled artillery, and they're gonna put that face down on phase 1. Japan, let's say Japan does jet fighters, okay? They're gonna choose jet fighters, put it on phase 1. Let's go with the United States. Let's say they do super transports, phase 1. And the United Kingdom, let's say they do radar, okay? The ATC, so United Kingdom is gonna do that phase 1. Now, each one of the major powers can do that at the beginning of the game at no cost whatsoever, okay? Now, let's look at the different phases now. In fact, I'm going to go over here. All right, so I have the different phases laid out right here, ladies and gentlemen, and let me show you how this is going to work. I'll put my little handy dandy tracker right here. Okay, so the game now starts, all right? It's at the beginning of round 1. If you choose to advance your technology, you can do so at a cost of 4 IPCs. However, you are not required to do so. Again, you get to pick your technology and put it on phase 1 at no cost. So let's say that everybody, all the major powers here, pay 4 IPCs each. So then that means you would move it to phase 2. Everybody moves to phase 2. Okay? Well, actually, let's do this differently. Let's say that Japan decides not to pay 4 IPCs. So they would stay at phase 1. All right? Now, you go through the entire round. Now it's the beginning of round 2, noted by the 2 up here. Beginning of round 2, before G2 happens, you then go through tech development again. Okay, at this point, anybody who wants to, again, you are not required, anybody who wants to can pay another 4 IPCs. When you pay another 4 IPCs, it moves it up to phase 3. Let's say that everybody did that. However, let's say that Japan decided to go ahead and participate, but now this is the first time they're paying, so they're 1 phase behind. Got it? Okay, now we're going to round 3. So we just finished all of round 2, Germany all the way to France. Now we're beginning to start round 3. Okay, so before G3, at this point, everybody who is on phase 3, which in this example is everyone except for Japan, for this example, everyone at phase 3 gets to roll 1 die at no cost. Okay? And the way this works is, if you roll a 6, you get your technology and it is effective immediately. Okay? However, whatever you roll is what you have to pay. So you don't have to pay to buy the die. You only pay what it says. So essentially what you want to have is you either want a 6 or a 1. If you roll a 6, yes, you have to pay 6 IPCs. However, you will get your technology immediately in round 3, which is huge. If you don't get a 6, you want to get a 1. That way you're only paying 1 IPC. And by the way, this has to be done before you purchase units. So you're going to have to use your IPCs that you collected from round 2 in order to do this. So let's say each nation rolls and they do not get a 6. Well, then what happens is everybody would pay whatever they rolled. Okay, somebody may roll a 4. Let's say that Germany rolls a 4, they pay 4. Well, Make sense? Now, at that point, you would then move to H, which means your tech is on hold. All right? So Japan is still one phase behind. They went ahead and paid 4 IPCs. So everybody at this point has paid 8 IPCs, and Japan is 1 tech behind, and then they have paid an additional whatever the die has said. All right? Hope this is making sense. Now, we go through round 3. We go through round 3, do all the battles, we get up to round 4. Before Germany does G4 and makes any of their purchases, what you can do is, at this point, you can buy as many dice as you want for 1 IPC each. Now, I would recommend buying no more than 6, because the odds are that with 6 dice, you are going to get you have like a 90-something% chance that you are going to get your tech. And the thing is, when you buy the dice, so let's say you buy them for 6 IPCs each, or I'm sorry, 1 IPC each, total of 6. However, you can roll either a 6 or a 5 to activate your technology. All right? So let's say, for the sake of this demonstration, let's say that Germany buys 6 dice and they get either a 5 or 6. That means now their tech is active. Okay? Let's say that Russia does it. Let's say that United States does it. Let's say that UK misses. They roll 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. So now UK's tech is not active. All right? So let's talk about the active techs so far. Germany, Russia, and the United States all have an active tech. So they are welcome to use their tech immediately here in round 4. So the United States, if you notice, they have super transports. Okay? So they don't have to divulge they have super transports unless they start to load the transports with 3 units as opposed to 2. Then they have to say, I have super transports. Does that make sense? Okay, now the Soviet Union, they have self-propelled artillery. Well, they might not want to disclose that yet because it might be that their artillery is in position to attack, but they don't have the numbers yet. So they might wait to actually divulge that. Okay, you do not have to divulge your tech until you actually use it. Once you do divulge it, you would simply flip it over, and that means obviously you have divulged your tech. Okay. Now, in this example, Japan was 1 step behind. They would follow the same procedure as what we've done before. They would just be 1 step behind. So round 5 essentially is when they would buy the 5 or 6 dice to roll. Now UK missed on round 4. So what happens now? Well, what happens now is on round 5, UK has an option. They can say, forget it, I don't want to waste any more money on tech, or they can buy more dice, and they can buy as many as they want for 1 IPC each. So let's say they spend another 6 IPCs, and then they roll, and they got a 5. So now their tech is active, and at this point, they can determine whether to disclose it or not. Okay, so that's a nutshell of how the technology works in Bloodbath Rules, in the Bloodbath Rule set in BBR. And all of this information, by the way, can be found on page 22 and 23. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't go through and read all of this. I basically explained it kind of off the cuff, but as if I was explaining it to somebody at a game. But all this information, including all the different, if you don't have the card set that shows all of the different development breakthroughs, you have the same chart in the book on page 22, and all the phases are listed on page 23, along with an example of the research and development tracker. Okay, so I hope that helps. A couple things. like I said earlier, is this tech chart IPC tracker is not required, but it definitely comes in handy, and you can print one of these off for free on a piece of paper if you download Sire's rule book for free. The card deck, which is what I recommended earlier, a couple weeks ago on our components video, which is I think episode 2. I highly recommend getting a deck of these cards. There are 90 cards in the deck, and they're only $20. You can find a link to the site to purchase these as well in the description box of episode 2 as well, which is the components episode. And the roundels, the tech roundels, not required, obviously. If you just want to put a chip, a chip to keep track of what your technology is. Now, to keep yourself honest, you might want to tell your teammate what your tech is, or write it down on a piece of paper, and that way when you do activate your tech, you just show them the piece of paper that you wrote your tech down at the beginning of the game, just to be honest, so that you're not changing your tech in the middle of the game. Now, as far as the minor powers are concerned, the minor powers are allowed to develop tech with the exception of China. China cannot develop tech. However, everything starts for them one round later, okay? So Italy, for instance, Italy still goes through the same phases that we just talked about, as well as Canada and Anzac. However, they would not start this whole process until the beginning of round 2. So round 2 would be the first time that they pay 4 IPCs to develop their tech, okay? The question then comes up, are you able to develop 2 technologies? And the answer is yes. However, you cannot develop 2 technologies at the same time. So for instance, let's say that Germany paid 4 IPCs, right, round 1, and advanced their technology. In round 2, they paid 4 IPCs, and they got it to phase 3. Now, let's say on round 3, let's say Germany rolled a 6. Boom. Let's just pretend they rolled a 6. Well, then they would pay 6 IPCs, and their tech instantly goes to being active. Okay? So now Germany is in round 3, right? Germany is in round 3, and their tech is activated. So technically, there's round 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 5 more rounds still to play the game. And of course, if you're playing a 10-round game, you have 7 more rounds. So at this point, at the beginning of round 4, Germany could decide, if they could choose, to start to develop another tech. And that's why you see 2 different active boxes. So the most any nation can develop, as far as technology is concerned, are 2 different technologies. However, they may not be developed at the same time. Okay? You have to wait till one is completely developed before you start developing another. Now, I have never seen, in the games I've played, 2 technologies developed in one 8-round game. Okay? Because usually it's round 4 before people get technology, and then they use it 5, 6, 7, and 8. However, like I said, if you happen to get your technology activated on round 3 and you've got tons of money, you might say, you know what, if I can get my technology developed by round 7, then I've got 2 rounds, round 7 and round 8, to use that second technology as well. All right? So I know that's a lot of information. And like I said, if you need any more clarification, rulebook page 22 and 23 will clarify that. So there you have it, guys. I hope this was helpful. And if you had any questions about technology, I hope this cleared it up. So needless to say, now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Gijoe!